The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and good evening, everybody, and welcome to the webinar, How to Start a Student Accommodation Rental Portfolio with Digital Currency. And your presenter will be myself, Lady Victoria Walker. So welcome, everybody. Great to have you here for those who have shown up. It is an honor to be able to speak to you all today. Sorry, just bear with me. Let me get my screen back. There we go. So yes, it's an honor to speak with you all. We're going through such an interesting time right now. The economy is looking very interesting, and the boom of cryptocurrency, 2017, it has been the year of cryptocurrency. So for all of you who are watching this today and on the replay, welcome and congratulations for being here. So I am going to speak to you guys about a few things. So first and foremost, we'll go through the introduction. We're going to talk about why we are here and what exactly started this. What is Bitcoin? What is the blockchain? What can you do with Bitcoin? Why invest into property using Bitcoin? We're going to talk about Capscoin and the Capscoin ICO, which is an ICO where you can buy property shares with Bitcoin. We're going to talk about how you can potentially profit from this ICO and also talk about how you could potentially lose. I want to look at the disadvantages of using Bitcoin and the blockchain and the advantages as well. So we're going to cover a few things and hopefully it will make sense and you guys can go away with some of this information and actually apply it. Okay? You know, knowledge is important, but applying it is even more important. So, introduction to myself and who I am. So as I mentioned before, I am Lady Victoria Walker. I am a financial entrepreneur. I have been a financial entrepreneur since I was 26 years old, where I set up my first consulting business and I helped structure debt and equity deals. This was in the period just slightly after the recession. We're talking 2012, 13, when the market was picking up and we saw the rise of peer-to-peer lending. This was an interesting time as well because what we saw was the ability to use platforms and for investors, high net worth individuals, they were able to directly invest and loan money to businesses because the banks just wasn't doing that. You know, since the crash, banking restrictions changed a lot and it became more difficult for people to obtain credit. People who would have normally had credit lines and access to capital to grow and expand or start a business, it ended. So, yeah, out of sort of one catastrophe comes some opportunity. So yeah, I set up this business and I got into cryptocurrency as I was noticing a few flaws with the current fiat system. So I consider myself a visionary, a forward thinker, and so I decided that I was going to actually move my entire business into the cryptocurrency and blockchain industry. And this has been my journey for the past year. So, why are we here? It's a big question. Why are we here on the webinar first and foremost? But also, why are we in this situation? Why are we talking about cryptocurrency? And why is there such a big demand and a massive change in the feelings and opinions of how the general public feel about the central banks? So we're really going to need to look at why we got here, because there's a journey, and it's important to look at, why we're here. And how did this all start? So we're going to just look and take it back to about almost a decade ago. I'm sure you all remember the biggest financial crisis that we've seen since the 1929 depression, which was quite a bad time. 2008, I was about 21 years old, and I think at that age, you're just finding your feet, you're figuring yourself out. I mean, I was quite entrepreneurial from young, so I actually had my own business. I had a little office, and I remember one day coming in, and there was a gentleman. We sort of had this co-working space, and he happened to be a financial advisor. And I remember coming in, and he was literally at his desk crying. And the reason why was because on a particular day in 2008, the markets literally collapsed, and a lot of people lost a lot of wealth. There were people who committed suicide because they just couldn't bear the thought. I mean, their pensions had gone, their stocks and savings had been wiped off. People were having their homes repossessed. And this was a global thing. This happened, it affected everybody around the world, and more so the millennial generation as well. When the banks were bailed out, a lot of the funds didn't trickle down to the people who needed it in the economy, like the entrepreneurs, and like the entrepreneurs, so they can hire people and the businesses. And so it caused a lot of problems. And there's an interesting quote from Jack Reed, who's a politician. He said, the financial crisis is a stark reminder that transparency and disclosure are essential in today's marketplace. And that's the truth. I mean, when we look at how we got here, it was to do with a lot of bad practice, greed, and lack of regulation around lending policies. So basically what happened, the government in the US decided to secure mortgages. And what that did was effectively create a moral hazard, because now banks and institutions could sell these securities to investors knowing that it had a security, so that the banks would have to honor that debt. But it caused a lot of problems, and what happened was greed, as with anybody. And I think we want to get away from really blaming the banks, but looking more at the people who were responsible. The banking system worked for a period of time, but I think there became a time where, because there was such lack of regulation, especially when you talk about the top 12 banks, and because there was lots of incentives to sell more, it became about business. It didn't become about the wider economy. And so we had problems. So the people were angry. And I'm sure you all remember Occupy Wall Street. And that was kind of the start of when Bitcoin and the first white paper of Bitcoin became available. Sorry, I just lost my screen here. So this brings us to Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, this collective, and I believe it's a collective, or individual, possibly a collective, who decided that they were going to change or create something which was a peer-to-peer cashless system, which allowed people to transfer value between one another without using a third party. Now, I think the concept was just so ahead of its time, because it was like, I think the only people that really got it were people who probably used it for the wrong purposes. I think people looked at it, but they didn't understand the technology. And I'm just going to read you guys a quote from Satoshi Nakamoto, which says, "The root problem with conventional currency," oops, I do apologize, guys, "is that all the trust that's required to make it work." Sorry, let me start this again. "The root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that's required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. Banks must be trusted to hold our money and transfer it electronically, but they lend it out in waves of credit bubbles with barely a fraction in reserves. We have to trust them with our privacy, trust them not to let our identity thieves drain our accounts." And this is really the concept and the reason why Bitcoin, or how Bitcoin was created, because it was created to solve a lot of these problems. It was created to solve the issue of trust and transparency, because we don't see what the banks do. And I've worked in banking. I have been privy to the industry, working with private banks across the world. And, there are instruments where literally you could put in £1 and be able to raise £100 worth of credit at 1% interest, or sometimes zero, and this is how money's created. It's created off money. So, there's the whole issue of, sorry, excuse me, guys. I did forget to turn my phone off. Let me just do that now. I do apologize for that. Yeah, so, we've got this whole system built on lending investors money or depositors money without actually giving them any interest on it either, and creating these bubbles. Also, the whole system with how electronic transfers are happening, it is so prone to hacking. There's the whole double spending problem. There is a problem of malware, and just the systems get breached all the time. I mean, I don't know if anyone in here has been a victim of banking fraud or credit card fraud. And there's all these things that just make the system very vulnerable. We have to trust them. And, let's be honest, the banks have proven that they are not trustworthy, and that they have, and in the past have, ruined people's lives and walked away scot-free pretty much. So I guess the people, including myself and millions of other people, who believe in fairness and believe in openness and trust and transparency, we want to support a currency that does that. And lo and behold, we get Bitcoin. So, what is Bitcoin? Now, I really need people to understand two things about Bitcoin, right? So there is Bitcoin with a small b. That is the digital currency, okay? So this is what we trade and we buy at times. And I think people need to understand the difference between Bitcoin with a small b, which is the currency, and Bitcoin with the big B, which is the blockchain. So what is a blockchain? Well, a blockchain is a digital public ledger of all cryptocurrency transactions. So ultimately, it is a book of transaction, or a digital log that is available. It's decentralized, and it is available for everybody to see all the transactions that happen in the cryptocurrency market. So most currencies are traded on the Bitcoin blockchain. And this is why Bitcoin as a blockchain will pretty much stand the test of time while the cryptocurrency market's there. Will Bitcoin as a currency move that way? We don't know. But right now, being that Bitcoin, the blockchain, is the leader in this market, being as there is a market cap on how much Bitcoin is available, and being that its system works on a deflation inbuilt technology, and all the other great things about Bitcoin, which I'm not really going to go into too much on this because I am talking really about how to use Bitcoin, but I do provide other workshops and seminars and webinars that go into much details about how Bitcoin works. But also there is lots of information out there online as well. So yeah, but just so for this purpose of this webinar, I want people who maybe aren't familiar with what a blockchain is or what Bitcoin is to know the fundamental differences and to also know why the blockchain is changing things. This is the first time we've had a kind of collective of or a cooperative of people who have created a community. They've created a system, and it's a system that's built on something quite unique in the financial world, which is complete openness, complete transparency, and complete regard for the community and the people who are involved. So it's a really cool industry, and it's a really interesting time for it to be available to our generation. I say our, as a millennial, we I do, innovation, and Bitcoin is the revolutionary disruptor of our time. And I know a lot of blockchain companies that are coming up and coming out, and those who are getting involved, it's kind of early adoption kind of taking off stage. There's going to be a lot of people that benefit and profit from it. And that's always like with anything, the first people who bought into Google and Facebook, the early adopters are the ones that get the most reward. And I really believe this industry is here forever. Well, forever while we've got the internet, or until something replaces it. Okay, so let's move on. So what can you do with Bitcoin? Right, you can do many things. I mean, let me start again. The other day, I went onto a website called Girl Meets Dress. Really, really, really beautiful dresses. And they accepted Bitcoin, which was really cool. I was quite surprised. So there are a lot of more online retailers who are popping up and selling items with Bitcoin. Lamborghini has just started accepting Bitcoin for Lambos. And there are lots of things you can do with Bitcoin, very much like money. And I think what the fundamental thing people have to remember is Bitcoin is both a commodity. And I would consider Bitcoin more of an asset than a currency because it increases in value. Obviously, the value is determined on the market demand, which makes it very volatile for it to actually be a currency. It's not stable, but it is a good commodity because it will hold your value. And because of its design and its finite supply, whatever amount you have, over a period of time, there's going to be less supply. So by the laws of economics, your value of your asset will increase, very much like gold. So we're going to talk about buying property or property tokens with Bitcoin. So why invest in property tokens? Well, there are so many tokens out there, but I think when it comes to investing or putting your money anywhere, you want as much security as possible, right? More security, less risk. There's still risk, there'll always be risk, but the more security, the less risk, right? So property tokens have a fundamental benefit. It's backed by an asset. When you're doing any sort of loan investment into a company where there's an agreement to pay you back with interest, you want to look at, okay, what security, what are my guarantees, or what's the model? How am I going to get this money back? And with property, you have the stable yields from rental income. Everybody needs a home. So we know that whilst the property is there, there's going to be income and yields from the rental income. Why invest in property tokens? You can invest directly with a property developer or an entrepreneur without a third party. And this is a good thing about the blockchain because it's all about proof of stake, proof of work, proof of ownership, because it's on the blockchain. It's very transparent. So the contracts and the terms and the stipulations are out in the public. And when you buy a token, you're basically buying an agreement. And an agreement, they have different stipulations. But what it allows you to do is the blockchain executes this transaction. The blockchain makes the transaction available, and the system of the blockchain allows us, as the users of the currencies or different tokens, to trade, buy, and sell. The blockchain provides, blockchain companies are the future. So I think to invest in a coin that's backed or on the blockchain, we've got to remember a lot of these coins, when they go on the blockchain, they issue out their own currencies as well. So there's ways they can add more value. Like, for example, with Capscoin, which we're talking about, and this is what one of the biggest things what I like about Capscoin is that once you can buy the coin as an asset, very much like Bitcoin, so over time it will grow and it will appreciate in value. But also, Capscoin can be used as a currency to pay rent for Capscoin properties. So again, it's going to have a real world use. And the way they can issue that is solely through the amazing power of the blockchain. So it's really cool stuff. And I think why you should invest in property tokens is because we could be investing into the next equivalent to Facebook or Google, and not just property tokens. I mean, these are asset backed. And I'm big on, if I'm not too sure about the model, I want to know, okay, how am I going to get my money back? What is behind it? There are some other really good and innovative concepts where you can see, all right, then it is going to be based on market demand, or it's going to be based on, high growth and sales. And those, you take a risk, just like with any investment, anything you deal with, you take a risk and a chance, and even with property, but you're mitigating your risk a little bit. Okay, so Capscoin, this is an ICO that I have been supporting. And the reason, as I said, the reason being it's one of the first UK based. Now, this is an issue that really affects some of us in this game is your jurisdiction really matters. So your jurisdiction is the legal binding country that you're participating with, and I feel it's easier to deal with a company that is based in the country that you're in because you're part of the same jurisdiction. And if there were to be any sort of issues arising, or there were problems, then you would be able to stand in the same courts and hash that out. I mean, I doubt that will happen, but I just feel more comfortable knowing that I will be able to be in the same country with the company I'm investing in. I can see the assets. I'm involved. I'm there. So also, I like the idea. This is one of the biggest, a very big group, and a very, very, very integral company. Now, a lot of people know how strong I am, and this is one of the reasons probably why I'm drawn to the cryptocurrency community, is that integrity is so important to us. Openness and fairness is so important to us. And so one thing I like about the crypto community, and people who are really involved, we're not really in this for the money. I mean, yes, we all want to profit, but a lot of people that are in this is because it meets the core value of ours, which is fairness. And so a lot of the companies that are coming on the blockchain are coming with this angle of fairness and transparency, because it's not what we've had often in the banking industry. And what's the point in like ripping people off and defrauding people? It just doesn't create a good environment for the wider economy. Business and trade is built on trust, and so we have to build trust with people, especially with the new technology. So yeah, I mean, Capscoin is, they've been around. I mean, they're backed by the Kexel Group, which is a property group that do a lot of student accommodation around the world. So they have a portfolio with 120 million pounds worth of assets. But again, same challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs face is that the banks are being very choosy, especially the British banks, on who they were lending to, what they were lending, especially because they had to claw back money. We're still kind of suffering from the effects of the crash. So Capscoin had to, think of something, because you've got to understand, like, the population grows, and as the population grows, new opportunities become available, new assets become available, and for a business to sustain itself with just normal growth, it needs capital to acquire that. When a business is restricted from doing that, not only are they not able to grow, but they're not able to employ people, and they're not able to keep the economy growing. And I will say with the Kexel Group is that these guys are award-winning student accommodation providers, because let me tell you something. And I'm sure most people who've been a student will tell you that some of the accommodation is disgusting and it's not well looked after. And the Kexel Group have grown their business purely because they look after their properties, they value their students, and they do the best job that they can. And businesses don't win awards for being mediocre. Businesses don't stay around for 39 years for being mediocre. This is a good business, and this is why I'm backing Capscoin. So about Capscoin, so the brainchild of this was Simon Lee. He is a visionary like myself and a blockchain enthusiast. And Simon, like most entrepreneurs, use his brains to solve problems. And this is what entrepreneurs do. We solve problems. We're problem solvers. We see things and we figure out, well, we might not know how to fix it. We might not know how to do something, but guess what? You're going to figure it out. And that's basically what Simon did. He partnered with Kexel Group. As I said, it's a 39-year-old company that do student accommodation. Now, they launched their ICO on the 15th of September, so it was a couple of days ago. I was happily waiting, for it to launch, because I'm really excited about this ICO, and I really, really wanted it to succeed for them. I believe they deserve it as a company, and I know the benefit. And also, I just love the idea that you can buy coins that, I might get my daughter a Kexcool property when she goes to university and use my token. So, I think it's a really cool idea. Now they're looking to raise 80 million, and basically what they're offering investors, and then this is going to be roughly, it's not a guaranteed rate, but their median is between 8 and 15% yield on your investment. So whenever you put in, and again, the longer you leave your token with the company, obviously, the more you'll get. But there's an interesting thing about this when it comes to tokens, because when we have sort of normal fiat currency and we put the money in a high interest account or we buy shares, we only benefit from the increase or the interest, the yield. But Bitcoin, there's some other interesting things. So how can we profit potentially from this? So really, how it works when it comes to cryptocurrency is quite simple. You buy your token, which is set, per small rate in Bitcoin. By the way, you buy your tokens. Everything's all done in Bitcoin. And then you hold them just like you would hold Bitcoin. And then you sell them back. So instead of selling it to somebody else, you'd actually sell it back to Kexel Group, who have a promise to buy. And you would do it through the BitShares exchange. So yeah, you're able to basically purchase and hold. The longer you hold, the more money you make. And as Kexel Group grows, as they sell their property portfolio, final coin holders will also benefit of a percentage of the sale. So they've put a really good compensation plan together. More details are in the white paper. So if you go to kexcoin.com, there is a full white paper of the coin, how they pay back. They do buy and burn, buy back and burn. So what happens is just like with Bitcoin, but it's a different way around. Whereas with Capscoin, they will buy back and get rid of the coin. So whatever's left on the market would have more value. I hope that makes sense. But if you need some more clarity, go onto the website and have a look. There's a lot of information there. So how can you potentially lose? So we can always talk about the good, but we also have to look at the potential loss, because you can lose on these things. And as with anything, there is never any guarantees. So you have to be aware of the gains and the potential losses as well. So How you can potentially lose is if the value of Bitcoin goes down. So what you've got to remember is that the value of Bitcoin is in constant fluctuation. We have seen Bitcoin go up to from a couple of dollars up to 1,000, back down to 200. Then we've seen Bitcoin go all the way up to 5,000 and hit back 3,000. I mean, I was quite grateful because I got my Bitcoin probably a lot later than most people that I knew, actually, because I had friends that bought Bitcoin for like $27 and now it's worth like 50 grand. I came in when it was just under 1,000, which was still quite high. But in comparison to where it is now, I've still made a decent amount of money off my investment. And the good thing is that I can use that profit, or the interest that I've made, to put into other ventures and make even more profits. It's just really cool. And yes, it is digital money, and yes, it's a bit of like playing around. But the fact that I can actually sell this Bitcoin when I want fiat, which, to be honest, I don't often. I just keep it there. But if I do want to sell 20, 30,000 pounds worth of Bitcoin, it's very easy and simple to do. So yeah. Also, how can you lose money if the company isn't able to meet its debt demands? So really, the coins is almost, it is a debt demand. Or well, I guess I can't call it debt. It's a token, but there is a commitment or an offer to buy back. And I guess the only way that wouldn't happen is if the company isn't able to meet the costs or doesn't have enough money. Now, going back to what I was saying before, because it's backed by property, they've got the rental incomes, they've got experience in this industry. It's about acquiring and purchasing all sorts of buildings on campuses. The model's really good. The likelihood, I mean, it's still a possibility. Markets change. There could be some sort of disaster, anything. But all things being equal, they should be able to pay. But as I said, possibility, it could flop. So advantages of using Bitcoin to purchase digital assets. Well, profit, because you not only profit from the yield that you get from holding it with Capscoin or wherever, but you also profit from the value of Bitcoin rising as well. So that's quite an interesting thing. You kind of benefit from the twofold. The contract and token and terms are on the blockchain and executed by the blockchain, which means that there is no third party, there's no paperwork and fees and brokers and banks and this and that and advisors, and it just gets rid of all of it, and this is unnecessary. Who wants to really waste time doing all that? You just want to just do a transaction. I want to invest. Cool. Here's your money. That's it. And that's what the Bitcoin allows you to do. You can sell your assets at any time for Bitcoin, which is cool because, there's lots of the exchanges on the cryptocurrency exchanges, the Bitcoin blockchain, constant transactions. I mean, you're looking at, you've got hundreds of millions of pounds going through the system. So there's money there. There's an opportunity there. Again, it's not as big as the stock market. It's a very small market, but it is growing. And then lots of people are adopting this idea and loving it and getting involved. Hence why you lot are here. Okay, so you can sell your assets at any time. Okay, proof of stake. So yeah, you get your proof, it's all there. Your keys, your private keys are there. You own that stake and nobody can take that away from you. That exists on the blockchain and that record cannot be altered, changed, or removed. So it just gives you a bit more security because, if you left this with the bank or somewhere, things happen. The hackers, they really, they're really working hard to hack away right now. And all the banks do is just print more money. And then that means when we go to the shop and we spend £10, we probably get £5 worth of value. But not with Bitcoin. It's actually the opposite, which is what I really like as well. So disadvantages of using Bitcoin to purchase digital assets. Well, Bitcoin is volatile. It's very volatile, as I said before, and it's driven by market demands. So all it takes is for Japan to say, you know what, we're not going to stop dealing with Bitcoin. And then you have a dip and then, regulators, because it's just still in this gray area. And I really, really, really hope in 2018, they will at least put some sort of something, because I think it's needed. We need regulation in the sense, not to control, but to protect And I do also think, like, okay, how much protection do you need to give a person? Surely an adult is capable of making a choice as to what they do. I don't feel like they should be babying, hand-holding people. But I do think we should have certain places that the businesses who are involved in cryptocurrency and blockchains are adhering to certain procedures that adhere to the thought laws and the contract laws and the the AML, anti-money laundering laws, and also the KYC. I think it's important because, we want to keep this industry safe. And when I say safe, integral. And when there are one or two or three or four bad eggs in the group, or in the community or in the system, it can affect everything. I mean, this is why China had to ban ICOs, because there was just so many scammy ICOs, people just ripping off some, and it was just, and China just, you can't almost, like, it was I'd say impossible, but yeah, it's just almost like total shutdown. It was hard for them, but they did keep some exchanges open, which shown that, okay, they were allowing it, but they wasn't able to sell or buy in yen because they didn't want the yen leaving the country or going into the system, but they could use US dollars. So there are still some exchanges open, but a lot of people think, they're being dictatorial. No, it really is that they needed to control the amount of fraud that was going on, and that's why they had to do it. And when you live in a nation, and I do believe it's driven by poverty, like when people don't have money or forced into the slave labor that they go through with the forced labor. Well, not forced, but it's slave labor because they get paid like £1 a day or whatever. People do resort to crime and fraud because they are trying to get money. And I'm not excusing it, but I think there's a lot of these problems come from the fact that people are suffering. So anyway, going back to the disadvantages. Now, I will say the blockchain cannot be hacked. All transactions on the blockchain are put in chronological order. They cannot be reversed. I mean, they're hashed into the blocks with cryptography, which do the mining. I mean, again, we won't get into the full crux of Bitcoin and how it's created and mined and all that, but I will tell you this. As it stands at the minute, the blockchain cannot be hacked. However, wallets and exchanges can be, and you are responsible, okay? You're accountable for the security of your assets. You're accountable for how you store your private keys. You're accountable for the security that you have on your devices. And if you are not too versed, you could be prone to losing your assets. So please, please, please do seek advice, because there are many people that come to me and like, oh my God, I can't find my keys. I can't find them. And I had this amount of Bitcoin and I bought it 5 years ago and it's worth this. And literally, if you lost your private keys, you've lost your Bitcoin. Okay? So please remember that. Also, the disadvantages, you may have to sell at a loss if the company faces issues. So going back to the risk, if they have problems, and they might buy the coin back at a lower value. So again, you could lose money. And I will say to people who are on this call, I don't know what everyone's situation is, but only invest what you will be willing to lose. If you're a bit of a gambler like myself, and also business savvy, and you kind of know what you're doing, and you're a sophisticated investor, by all means. But I think for new investors, for people who are just trying it out, I wouldn't hedge too much of your savings or anything. I wouldn't say not. I wouldn't. I mean, so your choice. Everything's choice. But I would always advise people, just for their own benefit, just only play with money that you will be willing to lose. Okay. Oh yeah, last thing as well, another disadvantage, lack of regulation. Some people think this is a good thing. I think regulation can be really pedantic and very stupid at times, because it's just like, okay, really, it's a bit much. So I think there needs to be a loose, or just something that protects people, like, guiding rules, but nothing too intricate that makes it so difficult for people to get into the industry, because that is what certain industries have been like. It's so regulated that it takes so much time, lawyers, solicitors, fees, and all sorts of things just to be able to participate. We don't want that. That's the old legacy system. Doesn't work for us, especially in the crypto. But, as I said, we need to protect people. So just be aware that right now there is no regulation, and that could change as well. And that could also have an impact. So it's a funny, we're in a interesting territory, but I really believe in this industry, and I really believe in the businesses involved and the leaders. So what is next? So really, guys, that's pretty much about the Capscoin opportunity. If you own Bitcoin and you like the concept of Capscoin, do visit www.capscoin.com, and all the information's there. You can set up your wallet and literally transfer. Each coin is 0.025 per Bitcoin, I think. Anyway, it's on the website. If you don't, for those of you who don't own Bitcoin and you need help getting started, you can join my online training program, which will be starting this weekend. And I will train you and show you exactly what you need to know when it comes to setting up a wallet, where to buy your Bitcoin, how to store your Bitcoin safely, how to do transfers and withdrawals, and ultimately, if you want to buy some Capscoin or any other ICOs, how to actually do that. And that is usually £97. But for all you lovely people who have shown up today and you have waited and you've lasted this long and you've listened to me go on tonight, I will do it and you will get it at an exclusive rate of £47. So thank you everybody for joining me. I'm going to see if anyone has any questions. I will have to look and see. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask me at all? If so, please feel free to type. Okay, well, if anybody does have any questions or they do want to, talk to me, or they just want some more information, you know where I'm at. You'll see me on Facebook, you'll see me on Instagram, on not Twitter, but you'll see me online. Please do connect, and I appreciate you all coming this evening. So have a lovely night and enjoy your evening, guys.